everyone. Welcome to today's Let's Talk About It conversation in sexual and reproductive health, rights, and justice. Thank you so much for being here with us today and taking our time to give us your thoughts and insights on this very important topic, or SRHR. And before we get into our question and answers, I would quickly like to share a bit about Girl Up and a brief introduction to our guest speaker, and then followed by the organization which ma'am heads, and then we dive into our questions. So I'll just quickly share my screen with all of you. Great. So let's talk about conversations in sexual reproductive health, right, and justice. So as I already mentioned about the agenda for today, what is Girl Up? So Girl Up is a girl-centered leadership development initiative focusing on equity for girls and women in spaces where they are unheard or underrepresented. So Girl Up was founded by United Nations Foundations in 2010, and it operates a global network of regional affiliates impacting 200,000 girls and youth leaders in 152 countries and all 50 US states. So Girl Up mainly focuses on developing transformational leaders who advance gender justice worldwide. Our motto is when girls rise, we all rise. This is for whoever youth leader or anyone interested to support and work at Girl Up. These are the three mediums through which they can get involved. One is through clubs and campuses. So you can feel free to start a Girl Up club or find one near you to get connected and become a part of this amazing network of change makers and transformational leaders. Second, you can join our online community and connect with our girl leaders who are working towards gender equity and equality. And third is to register yourself for our Girl Up's flagship events like Leadership Summit and Girl-led Regional Summits. Now, what is the aim of our webinar series? Firstly, we want to develop the skill set of our young leaders to tackle the field of SRHR, because somehow we felt that there's a lot of limited information and we really want to make our leaders aware of all the intersectionality and upcoming debates which are in the field of SRHR. Second, we want our leaders to get inspired and to act and share the stories of the leaders and grow as people and leaders of SRHR. Thirdly is like a guest speaker. She really serves as a very, very good role model for all young women who are pioneering and wishing to have a career in gender equality as a whole or in the field of reproductive and sexual rights. Now, our guest speaker is Pooja Taparia, who is the founder and chief executive of Arpan, which is a globally recognized award-winning NGO working towards the elimination of child sexual abuse in India, Mumbai. Arpan is a leading voice in the space of CSA and uses advocacy and research to push for policy and systematic change at the local, state, and national level. Since 2007, Arpan has impacted over 2.5 million children and adults. Pooja is also on the board of Souls ARC, which addresses the challenges experienced by struggling learners across their lifespans and works towards improving their life outcomes. We are very honored to have you with us on this talk today, Pooja. Thank you for taking our time once again.
Thanks, Vanshika. Very happy to be here.
Thank you so much. And a quick introduction about me. Hi, I'm Vanshika Kalsi. I have served as the regional leader of Girl Up's Europe and Central Asia region. I co-founded Girl Up Ascend in India, where we were focusing on empowering women, and we especially worked in context of sex workers. Currently, I'm working as a CSR officer in Germany, where I ensure labor rights for women in the leather industry. I too run an NGO in Agra, India, where we support rural women's economic resilience, educational equality, and addressing the food shortages. And I am very happy to be here too. Now, before we dive into our interview, I would request our speaker to quickly share a video about Arpan. Thank you so much, Pooja, for sharing this lovely video with us. So, taking what we just saw further, I would like to ask you what inspired you to work on this specific issue of CSA?
Right. This was year 2003, and I was inspired to do something for the community, to give back. And that's how the name Arpan came about, when it was about Arpan making little differences. Arpan is a Hindi word, and it means to offer back. And I started going to orphanages, old age homes, with a group of friends, where we would see what they need and trying to raise resources to help provide that. For instance, in a boys' orphanage shelter home, we got together, raised some money, and bought them sports equipment. Or we would go to an old age home and celebrate Diwali and Holi kind of festivals with them. So once a month we would do some activity. Things changed when I saw this play called 30 Days in September. It was a play that showcased the trauma that an adult survivor goes through, having been sexually abused as a child. And I was shocked by watching that. I came out of that hall thinking, oh my God, like, if there is a play on this issue, has to be a social problem, needs to be happening. And how come I don't know anything about it? Growing up in a city like Bombay and going to a very liberal school, I was just surprised that I didn't know this issue. I didn't understand it. And so I got home and started to research online to see how much of child sexual abuse is happening in India and what's being done about it. And to my dismay, I found that statistics were saying almost 1 in every 2 children is experiencing some form of sexual abuse in India. And there was hardly any work happening on it. The government wasn't doing much. There were very few NGOs that were addressing it. And that's the time I decided that, this needs addressing. Most of us, and whatever these statistics say, I know most of us have growing up, been exposed to the issue and have experienced it. And I think it's really critical that we deal with it head on. And that's how Arpan's trajectory changed. And we said, let's address the issue of child sexual abuse.
Wow, that's so heartwarming. I completely resonate with what you said, that one play in your case completely changed your whole focus area of working, because very similar experience had happened with me too, and that's why I entered the economic resilience aspect,
Nice.
of gender equality. So of course I understand that, how does CSA intersect with the huge area of SRHR, but I feel because you are an expert in this field, could you give us a more deeper understanding that what does intersectionality really represents and what does it actually mean to you?
Sure. I think the issue of child sexual abuse occupies quite a unique space where there is selective denial and acceptance. Denial, it doesn't happen to my children. My school is safe. My home is safe. Happens to others, not us, not me, simultaneously. And so being a nuanced issue grounded in the interplay between individuals, family, communities, and societal factors, the normative structure reinforces and perpetuates child sexual abuse and upholds the conspiracy of silence that we all experience, right? There's so much of stigma around it. It's such a taboo issue. I know, like I said, growing up in a city like Bombay, in a liberal school, nobody spoke about this issue. And thus, sexual abuse of children is often hidden, underreported, and there's limited acceptance of the prevalence of it. It impacts children across ages, socioeconomic classes, genders, affects mental health, and has negative consequences at all levels: physical, sexual, social, psychological, impacts classroom behavior, attitude to classroom, and later academic performance, and can have a lifelong impact if unhealed. And what happens is, as the normative structure, which reinforces and perpetuates child sexual abuse, is rooted in the overarching framework of patriarchy and gender biases, which propagate double standards around sexuality and gender roles. And the silence stems from the fear of shame, denial, and social stigma. And so CSA interacts intricately with other SRHR issues. For example, child sexual abuse and intimate partner violence are not two parallel issues, but there are intersections among these forms of violence and abuse across the life course. Co-occurrence of intimate partner violence and violence against children in the same household is common. Similarly, intersections between early and forced child marriage and sexual abuse are evident. It is often the same root causes and drivers, shared risk factors, social norms and expectations, and gendered power dynamics which lead to these diverse SRHR issues. And similarly, often the consequences of these diverse forms of gender-based violence are common and compounding and have intergenerational effects. Evidence of intersections highlights a need to pay greater attention to this interconnectedness of gender-based violence across the lifespan and the gender dimension of it.
That was very profound. And yes, I completely understand that the impact is intersectional, and to deal with this also and to prevent it or minimize also, we have to take a lot of intersectional approaches, which can be very challenging at times. But I would take you a little back to the first question, where you wrapped up that how your journey, not journey, but what got you to refocus on this specific issue. But I'm going to make you maybe dig a bit more deeper into it, and maybe I would like to ask you what's been your journey from when you started to today as a leader.
When I was thinking this through, and I thought the two words that come to my mind first is learning, and second is empowerment. And that's what it's been. It's been a journey of tremendous learning and empowerment. I'm very proud to say that I've been very diligently working on the issue of child sexual abuse now for over the last 17 years, and have emerged as a global thought leader in the space, and through Arpan impacting 3 million children and adults and still counting. And have been able to build a very large team over the last so many years. So we started out as a 2-member team to today to a team of 140 professionals, and possibly have become the world's largest nonprofit addressing the issue of child sexual abuse. And we've won numerous national level and international level awards for our exemplary work. So it's been great to see what we've been able to build together. I'm really excited also to see how we've been able to design programs, think of strategies to solve the problem, and being able to evaluate the impact and the effectiveness of what we're doing. And like you saw in the video, there's considerable impact that we've been able to create. I think it also comes from the fact that we've been very open to learning, taking advice, learning from people who've already done this work. And then it's just been a journey of continuous innovation, design, redesign, agility, to create solutions and strategies that work towards addressing and solving the problem of child sexual abuse. I would also like to say that this journey has also been filled with a lot of dilemmas, right? It's not an easy and a straightforward path. It's also a path that in India, we were one of the forerunners of walking that path at the scale at which Arpan is working at. And so there have been times of conflict, dilemmas, gray areas to navigate and figure out what's the best possible thing that we can do for the people we work for and for the people we work with. And I feel great about where we are today and who I have become as a result of this journey.
That is love.
The journey is a very long one, so this is like a brief of what is the essence of what it's been like.
Yeah, but I have a question about this. Like you said, it's been full of, it has its challenges, it has its dilemmas, and difficult days. Now, as someone who's been in this field for 17 years, and I think this is a question which a lot of youth is going to ask, because I feel it can get heavy on you also as a person when you're coming across, on a very regular basis, and you're seeing the kind of issues and situations, young kids have to deal with. But at a personal level, how did you make peace with it and did not get bogged down or get disheartened, but still turned a source of motivation and kept moving forward? Yeah.
I think that's a great question, Vanshika. For me, what's worked is continuous therapy for myself. So by 2000, while we started this work by 2006, by 2009, I had started regular therapy for myself. So I was going for counseling, trying to address issues that were bothering me. And I think that being able to have embarked on my own therapeutic journey helped me tremendously. And till today, I reach out to my therapist whenever I need to. And I think that's been one of the most significant parts of empowerment, because I feel that very often, some of us who come into this issue in this space to address this issue, many of us have a reason to do so. And we might be personally motivated because of whatever experience we've had or our loved ones have had. And that obviously has had impact on us. I personally believe as a professional, it is our responsibility to address that impact, because somewhere I feel that we might sometimes forget why we are doing what we're doing. And I don't know whether we sometimes truly do our best to serve the people we want to work for, because maybe we are not listening. Maybe we are working from a space of what I think should be done vis-a-vis what I think people want us to do. And I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we are grounded and we truly listen to the people we work with and for, to see what is it that they want, right? And I think it's like, to give you an example, justice, something can mean justice for me, but it can mean something completely different for you. Now, who's going to decide what that justice should be? And it's, I think, very important to recognize that it can be different for different people, and to be okay with what people choose as justice for themselves, rather than imposing our understanding of justice on others. And I think, therefore, it's really important to make sure that we are continuously grounded and thinking and making sure that we are truly listening to the people we work for and do what they want and not what we think should be done for them.
I'm so glad you touched on so many important points, which as leaders would be so important for us to keep in mind and imbibe it when we are tomorrow working on the field. So when I was working, I was getting trained as a youth leader once, and my mentor told me that communication is not the key, comprehension is the key. And that really stayed with me, because we all ready to impose and put our thoughts, which is wonderful. But in our field, it's very essential to listen. And I'm so glad you picked up on that topic. And I'm sure a lot of leaders are going to be writing notes about this and how to be a better leader tomorrow. So going on, because I think it's very important, this next question, which we also may face in the near future, that what are the biggest SRHR issues in the recent times, maybe you can talk in context of India or South Asia, whichever you feel more comfortable, but what are the most pressing issues which you feel that the youth of today should address or be aware about or work in?
I think there are a whole range of issues that I think are huge today. And I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge everybody who's been a part of the feminist movement and who started it in the a couple of decades ago, and I'm so glad to see some progress has been made. But as much as that progress has been made, there's still so much to do, right? So whether it's women's rights, children's rights, I think there's way more work to be done. And I feel that in India, and whether it's Asia or whether it's actually across the world, I think issues of domestic violence, sexual violence, physical and sexual violence against children and women, or the LGBTQAI plus groups of people, I think still is a very pressing issue. Trafficking, modern day slavery, child labor, exploitation of women at the workplace, whatever kind of workplace is it, whether it's an agricultural field or a corporate office. I think acknowledging and understanding sexual harassment or harassment of any kind or exploitation of any kind, I would say these are some really pressing issues that we are facing today. And I think it needs addressing for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I would like to know your opinion and thoughts on this, because you mentioned that there are so many kinds of exploitation, but here let's talk in context of the sexual and the child exploitation. What do you think? Because once I was reading this article and it said that the sexual abuse which happens, it's more it's less of a sexual component, but more as a power play of the different genders. So if that's completely, if you feel like, would you like to expand on this statement a bit more? And what do you think actually? Do these exploitations try to, like, what is the underlying thought of these exploitations? Because you have dealt with so many people, so you may have a more profound thinking than what we have in, at a surface level.
Per se, I think any kind of abuse or violence is a demonstration of power. No two ways about it. So whether it's a child being sexually abused, whether it's a woman being, beaten up, they are all examples of power being demonstrated. And I think it's very important to deconstruct this very power. And sometimes what I've also seen, and this is one of the things, right? I think the hypocrisy that exists. How do we look at power in our very homes, in our own ecosystem? And how would we envision what that power should look like outside can sometimes be very different. And why I'm calling this out is that sometimes we are okay with those power constructs in our very environment. We're okay with some of those gender biases and cultural norms that we have normalized. But when we see it happening with somebody else, we're not all right about it. And I think one of the things, and I'd written this, for later to share, but I would like to share this here. I think recognizing this hypocrisy, and I don't have a better word because it's not that somebody is consciously doing it, but I think recognizing this is critical, because how do we deconstruct that power in our own lives and then talk about others, I think is important, because then you know what that journey looks like. It's very easy to advise people, walk out of this marriage, take that child away, put that child in an institution. Oh, I think foster home would be better. We're all giving advice and gyan, but what does it mean for us in our very own lives is need to be understood first before you can start advising others, I feel. Yeah, like another very basic example I feel in life, which has been core to me, is I have no business advising people until and unless I know what hunger looks like or feels like. Right? If I don't know what an empty stomach feels like, not knowing where my next meal is going to come from, I have no business advising anybody of what they should do in their life. And I think those are things to really deeply think about, because sometimes it's, we become all activistic and like, oh, that's what we should do. Let's do a protest campaign. I'm not against it. But I'm just saying it's very important to understand what are we asking for and what does this mean for that child, that woman, that LGBTQIA or queer person if they have to take those steps.
Wow, that is so insightful. Thank you so much. Really, I don't think I've ever heard such a unique perspective to the whole concept of power and how it should be understood, and not just a one single track explanation, which has been, put down to us from so many different levels of institutions. But okay, coming on a bit lighter note,
Sure.
I would like to ask you, what does your day-to-day work look like now? Like a day in your life.
A day in my life. I would say typical CEO, but it's fun. Like my day is filled with lots of meetings and laughter and brainstorming and strategizing and planning, super planning and planning, looking into the future, whilst we're here where we are, but what does it look like 6 months ahead? What does it look like 3 years and so on? Where should we be in 10 years from now? But so, yeah, I think a lot of thinking, planning, being a vision and an impact guardian, like making sure we're staying course, there's no mission drift. I lead strategy reviews, planning and goal setting, a macro level administration as well, making sure that things are going as per plan, what we've planned, because typically you have plans, you have targets to meet. We're being funded by donors, so making sure we're going to meet those targets. But a lot of my focus is on people and culture. So building culture, motivating and inspiring my team, and of course, with that, aligning them to the vision and mission of Arpan. I work towards enabling a high-performing organization, facilitating internal innovation and collaboration so that we all work together to fulfill Arpan's goals. I think COVID was a tough time, but I would say I learned so much because you suddenly went from a peacetime CEO into a wartime CEO, wanting to make sure not only do we survive COVID, but we thrive, we take those opportunities and we further our mission and vision in that VUCA world, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And it was amazing to see how the entire Arpan team adapted to that new world and went ahead and did way more than actually what we had been doing. So I think, but that comes from the having a culture of continuous innovation and thinking, being agile and working together. And one of the other things I focus on is building resilience in the organization, one from a people's perspective. So from a resource perspective, both people and financing, building our capacities and expertise, continuously upskilling ourselves. I spend some time on raising finance and ensuring, everything is in place around that. I love advocating for the issue. So I talk at various forums talking about the issue of child sexual abuse, Arpan's work, and of course, work with the systems and government bodies to enable change. And yeah, overall, I think managing change, these are some things that I've been doing.
No, one thing which I'm taking back from this specific answer of yours is that immense courage which we should have to speak out. Like you said that you love advocating, but advocacy comes with a lot of courage to be that stand alone and really speak up what the cause is. Like, as you have mentioned, it's just stigmatized area of working that you already meet so many raised eyebrows. So that must be immense courage, which I think a lot of youth leaders are working towards, and I'm sure imbibing slowly. Follow up on one part of your statement. What would you say should be the qualities we as youth leaders should aspire to inculcate in our daily life? Like, should it be discipline? Should it be organization? Like, what helped you in your day-to-day life to achieve something so big and at an international scale? So what were those qualities, uh, which anything, I don't know, I just spoke discipline, but it can be something completely different, which can help us
Hmm.
to.
I think most importantly, it's important to recognize that what work that we are doing is basically attitudinal behavioral change. Yeah. And any kind of attitudinal behavioral change takes a very long time. And if we have to work on it, we truly are passionate about it and want to do something about it, then I think having grit and determination, being able to persevere no matter what the odds, having a lot of patience, because working with large scale system bodies, it's very important to be patient, to understand, or with any other organization, people have their own priorities. It's not that one fine day I will go and say, oh, please make this your priority. And so everybody should put everything aside and just work on what I am saying. That's not how it works. And so I think it's important to recognize that in the ecosystem of all the change that we are trying to make in the world, this is one aspect of it. And so it's important to have that realistic perspective and then patiently walk towards it and give it the time that it will require to actually happen. And I think the other thing I would say is that what's helped me really is to be very open to learning, continuously read, hear from people, understand what's going on, how do you do things. And I think that learning attitude, and any organization also, if you actually create a culture of learning, I feel that helps the organization tremendously. Because we are continuously then trying to see how can we do better, what could we have done in a given situation either in the past or the next time. And I think the spirit of learning and openness, I think is also very important. Lots of things, but these I would say are top of my mind.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, continuing on your journey and your experience, what were the biggest challenges which you faced working? First, I would ask you, and then I may ask you, how did you overcome it? So, were these challenges which you faced, were they somewhere? I think they must be attached to your identity of being a woman, or that did not really affect your field of work? That's this specific question I want to ask you, because I want to know, did this factor come into effect? But of course, in general, I would love to know what were the challenges, and how do you mainly overcome it?
I would say that, to answer your latter question first, I never experienced any significant challenge being a woman and working on this issue, thankfully. Overall, I think anybody who works on such issues faces those common challenges, and I think I face the same. One is, from an issue perspective, the denial around it, the taboo around speaking about it. So I think those are some common things, right? And I remember once I had gone for a talk and somebody said, oh, so you're not going to talk about anything gross, right? Just before I was going to start the talk. And I'm like, gross? No, not at all. And I remember in another talk, somebody saying, oh, but you're talking about these statistics, but I don't think it happens, My school is safe, the children, my children are safe, our homes are safe. Probably happens in the slum areas, probably happens with poor people. And, I think there's been this continuous battle that we have been fighting about changing these attitudes around denial and acceptance, which I earlier talked about, the intersections around SRHR and child sexual abuse. Is this whole issue of denial and acceptance. And I think the other thing I would say, however, I do want to add that things are way better today. What we were facing 15 years ago is not what we see today. There's way better acceptance of the issue, and there isn't as much denial. The awareness is much higher, even in rural areas of India where we are going and training teachers. It's amazing to see that teachers are so aware. So I would say that progress has been made. And the other thing I would say is the challenge around the way people view counseling and therapy. So people have always believed that, oh, if you're mad, you need counseling. If you have some mental health issue, you need counseling. Otherwise, why do you need counseling and therapy? It's never been looked at as a way in which you can actually address trauma or deal with issues of anxiety or depression or any kind of post-traumatic stress disorder through therapy. And I think that's been a challenge, because in the schools we've worked with, where parents have sometimes said, why does my child need therapy? My child is fine. Don't do therapy. And I think that's been a continuous challenge to have worked with. Again, I see progress there. There's much more openness to accessing counseling and therapy. And I think COVID did one good thing. I think it normalized addressing mental health way more than what it was being addressed pre-COVID. So I think today you have loads of apps which you can download on your phone and, do courses, have online counseling. So I think today it's way better. But yes, when I started out, it wasn't easy. And so I would say, from an issue perspective and from a implementation perspective of what we were trying to do, these were some challenges. Of course, when you're building an organization, there are always operational challenges, but I'm not sure I should harp upon that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Thank you so much for answering this. And then, what was your biggest learning as a leader? Like, we've talked about the traits which we should have, the challenges we should have, but also what was one or two things maybe which you felt that, okay, this is something which I learned from this whole journey, and I really want this youth, which is so, feministic in their views and perspective, to also know?
I think one I would say is that solutions exist. You need to have a mindset that looks for solutions. Even a problem which is as complex as child sexual abuse can be solved if you have a mindset that looks for solutions. So I would say that's my number one learning. Number two, I would say is, don't get disheartened by setbacks or challenges. They will come. embrace the learnings from it, and go do better next time. I think it's really important to acknowledge that it's not going to be a smooth journey. There will be challenges. You need to keep at it. I would say these are the two big things. And I know that the environment is way different than what it is today for all of you who are Gen Z. Things were different for us in the Gen X. But one of the things I never bothered about was people judging me for choosing to work on this issue. I come from a fairly conservative background, but that never bothered me. And thankfully, I got a lot of support from my family, my ecosystem. But I not for a moment ever thought what people are going to think about me that I'm choosing to address the issue of child sexual abuse. So I would say just be badass. Go do what you want to.
That is super. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. That was lovely. Now, I think I would come to our last question. So I'm loving this conversation, but due to the paucity of time, I have to, put the last question already. I would like to ask you that what would be your, like you've already mentioned that, be bold and just be there. But what would be your message to young and budding leaders who are passionate about SRHR, and how can they best get involved with some next steps which you can suggest to them, maybe with Arpan, because I'm sure there are going to be so many, South Asian audience watching this webisode. So maybe regarding Arpan or maybe SRHR in general.
Okay, so for SRHR in general, what I would say is no matter where you are, look around you and see what's happening locally, which organizations or initiatives are doing something to address SRHR, and find out about them, research, go meet them, learn from them. The other thing that I would say is that it's important to truly understand the problem that we are trying to address. And sometimes it can look very superficial on the top. I would really recommend deep diving and looking at what are the root causes and the drivers of that problem. The more you understand the problem, the more you will be able to think of ideas on how do you address them. And you will also understand what is your motivation. And I think it's really important to recognize one's own motivation so that you keep firing that up. Because remember, this is a long journey. Keeping ourselves motivated is very critical to continue on this journey. And I have heard and seen people drop off, right? You have a lot of startup initiatives shutting down. And I think it's really important to recognize why you are doing what you're doing, and where is that motivation coming from, and continuously firing that. So I think that is the second thing. And I think the third thing that I would say is when you've understood the field and who is doing, I think and do that also by talking to the people and understand what that journey has been like. Focus on how do you not reinvent the wheel. Piggyback on what's already happened, because some of us have already spent a couple of decades doing this. How do you take the issue from there? And I think that's what Gen Z can do, is take the next leap for these issues and, innovate, because, all of you are very bright. All of you understand this fast changing environment way better than us. And I think you have tremendous power to take that next leap of change. So I would say that would be from an issue perspective. And I think for Arpan, connect with us. We would love to engage with you, see what can be done together. Maybe if you want to take Arpan's resources in your countries and share them with organizations or schools wanting to address the issue of child sexual abuse, we could do that. We could create social media campaigns together. We could, maybe ideate on how do we create more access for counseling and therapy for survivors, both children and adults. I think lots of brainstorming can be done. Arpan already has a trajectory on which it is on, but we would actually welcome people, to come and ideate with us.
That is super. Thank you so much. Just one last question, because this is actually from my network when I told them that I'm going to do an interview with you. And the question was, as we have time and again mentioned, that SRHR is a bit tabooed and, stigmatized topic. So many of youth, the girl leaders, I would say, are having an issue to advocate in this specific field, because they are getting a lot of limitations from their immediate environment. Now, this can be their
Mm.
family, their friends, or relatives in general. So they are like, it is so difficult for us to break through this immediate limitation, that going out and advocating seems like a distant dream, or even talking about it in general seems like a very, very far goal to be achieved. So what would you say to these leaders or young thinkers who want to tackle this limitation?
Yeah. Like I shared, I think if you feel passionate about it, go do it anyways. And the second thing, like I had said, recognizing and deconstructing uh, gender biases, challenging socio-cultural norms, all of deconstructing power in our very own ecosystem is critical, but it takes time. And I would say is that don't expect that your family or your immediate environment is going to accept what you want to do. Be okay with that. Very often we might feel frustrated. Oh, why don't they get it? This is so important. This is what I want to do. I'm going to go do it. I don't care that they don't agree with that. And, we all get all activistic, right, around it. And I understand that. And you are at that age where, you have all that power going and rushing through your blood, which I really love. But I think it's, again, all I would say is just important to recognize that our parents, our family, they have had a certain upbringing. They have seen their parents, their ideas, they have imbibed some of that. It's important to remember we all have mirror neurons, right? We mirror what we have seen our parents do, right? In some way or the other. And I think it's important that to break that attitude, to challenge those norms that we have all grown up with, it takes time. And I think what's worked for me is just continuous dialogue, having a rational conversation. But why? Can we look at it like this? How do you think this person must have felt? Do you think we could have approached it in this way? um, I think one of my biggest learnings in my work has always been with children and with adults is rationalizing is a very powerful tool to bring about change. And I think it's important that those answers come from people around us rather than us giving those answers. What do you think? Sharing stories. This person is in this situation. What do you think this person should do? What are the options this person has? And I think slowly, as we get people to think around it, slowly their minds will change. And I think slowly things, will settle. So not worry, be at it, but be rational, be calm, and I think be perseverant. I also feel that when your family sort of sees that you're very serious about it, they start to respect that. And it's sometimes the unsurety. Oh, she is saying she wants to do this, but I'm not sure she'll be able to do it. Why is she wasting her time? She should go study further. And I think we all, our parents, our families have opinions about what we should be doing and where we should be spending our time, right? And rightly so, that's how it is. And in a lot of families, I would say. But I think it's important to very continually just keep that dialogue on and just focus on that dialogue. That really is the solution to address this, in my opinion. But I'm sure you all will have your own experiences to talk about. Works, not works. What are you talking about? Yeah.
Super. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, with this, we come to the end of our webisode, and I would like to thank you sincerely for sharing your valuable
Oh,
time
thank you
and
so much.
insight on the topic of sexual reproductive rights and justice. Your expertise and passion have undoubtedly enlightened and inspired all of us, and who are going to be watching, of course, them too. We are so grateful for the invaluable knowledge you have imparted upon us. Thank you very much once again.
Most welcome, and it was a great conversation, Vanshika, and glad to have been on one of the webisodes of webisodes of Girl Up. Yeah, that's the new, I guess, the new lingo that I need to learn from all of you, right? And was really happy to be here and engage in a conversation with you. And thank you to Girl Up for inviting me. I'm hoping and looking forward to some feedback that comes from our young viewers and learning from all of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.